Oh yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. All right, for
That's
live
got a
streaming.
nice pier to walk on, and I'm a cold weather sissy when it comes to bike riding.
Really? Yeah, like the wind hurt my ears. It was
Yeah, yeah. I'll get out with my friends and do some riding probably in April, starting April.
when it warms up.
Yeah, yeah. But I usually get out like I like to go Friday mornings or Saturday mornings at about 8 a.m. So it starts out when traffic's kind of light and then it doesn't get too bad.
Yeah, and you're right by the beach, so that's probably so
Yeah,
pretty.
a lot of bike paths along here. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much over here, so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'll have to take
someday
my
you can
bike
come.
down there to the beach.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let people in here. We did a new class yesterday on all about browsers, and I got a really nice feedback on it. So I think it's something we'll do again,
Oh, good.
helping explaining what web browsers are to people. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Windows 10 settings. I'm Bob Cohen. We have Megan from Get Set Up Support with us. If you need any help doing anything with getting on Zoom, getting online, using the Get Set Up website, send an email to info@getsetup.io. Okay, I'm going to start recording the session. So if you want to put your camera on, we like to see you. It makes it a little bit easier for me, but if you don't, that's okay too. If you're using a desktop, one of the ways you can get my attention is by using the raise hand reaction at the bottom of your Zoom window where you have the microphone and the video icons. If you scroll over to the right, you'll see something called reactions. And if you click on that, you can do things like raising your hand or clapping if you like something, or give me a thumbs up, or send a happy face or cry, or send a blow a party favor, whatever you want to do. So those are all things that you can do as part of your interaction with the meeting that help you if you're interested. And your chat is open, so if you want to put something in chat, that's fine. Some of you are probably new to Windows 10. Some of you probably have used it for a while, but I know you all read the instruction book that came with your computer, didn't you? Lynn got that. Yeah, there was no
Yes.
instruction book that came with your computer. There is none. And so this is a little bit of the instruction book. I do another class on Windows 10 basics, or newbies guys to do it. And so sometimes there. So Leola, you don't see an option to raise your hand. Are you on an iPad or a laptop or a desktop?
Laptop.
A laptop. Is it Windows?
It's Windows.
Okay. It's probably because your Zoom desktop software just needs to be updated. And if you download a new latest copy, because sometimes they bring out little features that they add in. So after class, go to zoom.us and you'll see and download the latest version of Zoom. That will probably help you.
Okay.
Another part of understanding technology, understanding updates and revisions and upgrades and all these things, right? I'll sip coffee periodically because I use it to moisten my throat. Okay, let me go through a few introductory slides, and we'll pause for questions. Think about what you might want to learn about Windows 10 settings. Okay, settings is a particular part of Windows. Maybe you've never visited settings before, but I'm going to try my best to help explain what in the world settings is. I was thinking this morning, and I said, boy, Bob, I wonder if I can think of a way to explain what settings are to people. because there's this thing called settings on most all of our devices. And why is it there in the first place? Okay. So I'm in Seal Beach, California. So I'm on Pacific time. So for those of you, it might be afternoon. It's morning for me. I was born in Chicago. Actually was in Chicago going to high school when a snowstorm caved in the roof of the old McCormick Place Convention Center. That's how I remember that. My dad was a school teacher, and we would drive out to California on Route 66 every summer. And I said, when I can, I want to come out to California. We visited my grandmother out here. So I went to college out here and met my wife, and I've worked in the tech industry and owned my own internet company. And I've done training at community colleges since about 2007. And I like making technology easier for people to understand. And most of the time, I think I make it work. So those of you that have taken classes from me before, I don't recognize any faces, but I do see a name or two I recognize. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. Where do you find settings in Windows 10? Some of the most valuable settings that you can use to customize your personal computer. There's thousands of settings. You will never use all of them, but I'm going to show you some of the most valuable ones, and then you can explore them later on. We're going to check your security and updates. You can do that from settings. And I'm going to show you where you can find some built-in troubleshooters. Microsoft, who makes Windows 10, has been, every time they come out with a new version of the operating system, Windows operating system, they seem to add more automation and more troubleshooting tips in it as well. And so there are some things that might help you troubleshoot things. It's kind of like having a technician built into your computer. It's kind of neat. So anybody have anything they're hoping to learn about Windows 10 settings today, other than, hey, if you haven't used it, that's okay. But if you have something you're hoping that that might be in settings, and if it is, we'll try and cover it. Okay. Anybody? Okay. Okay, we have a very polite group this morning, so that's always nice to have. I appreciate that. Everybody's muted, and that's terrific, because these microphones on our desktops and laptops always pick up a lot of extraneous noise. So I would like to learn about cleaning and keeping the computer clean. Okay, and how to keep security and updates current. Oh, great, great, thanks. Okay, we're going to look at that. And a lot of things are different now because Windows 10 is a major upgrade from Windows 8, which was a major upgrade from Windows 7, which was a major upgrade from Windows XP. And there was another version of Windows before that. And then there was MS-DOS in the old days. Okay, so as Microsoft changed Windows, they've changed the way things work. And Windows 10 is really one of the nice things to do. Defrag, right? And the great thing is you don't have to do some of these things at all anymore because they are taken care of in Windows. I'll show you that in storage. Okay, those are good questions. Thanks very much. You're helping anticipate my agenda, because these are the things that usually come up a lot for people when they're wondering, what do these settings do? Okay, so where do you find them? Okay, you find the settings by clicking on the Start button, often called the Windows button on a Windows keyboard. And then you look for a gear called the Settings gear. Okay. And so the settings gear is where you access settings. All right, so that's one of the things that you have to do. I'm watching questions, so we'll get through all of them. Okay, settings do things. What do they do? Well, settings changes how something works on your computer. I tried to find like an analogy for it, something that's familiar. So if like you think of adjusting the seat on your car to make it comfortable for you to drive in, right? It doesn't change how the car operates, but it changes how is for you when you get in the car. So it's an adjustment you make to your car. You're not taking the seat out of the car. You're just adjusting it. And so settings gives you the ability to make adjustments to your computer. Or maybe it's like rearranging things on a bookshelf or arranging the furniture in a room. You aren't tearing down the walls. You aren't taking the bookshelf out. You're just rearranging things on it. And so that's kind of what settings lets you do. You're not altering the fact that you've got windows. You just are using the settings to kind of customize or modify or change the way things are. So on your computer and how they work. And settings gives you the ability to do that. So we're going to talk about the about and storage, devices, Windows update and security, ease of access, and personalization. Okay. For those of you that asked about cleaning up and defragmenting, we'll take a look at storage in that. Okay. I see a question from Leola about getting the full publisher back on your computer. That's more of a question that has to do with if you bought a license from Microsoft for that and can install it on your computer. So that's not really a settings issue. It's more of a purchase issue with having the software. I don't know if there's a way. I don't think that'll be something we find in settings. So let's look around. I'm going to change my screen share here. I'm going to stop the slides and I'm going to start my Windows desktop. Okay. So now you can see my Windows desktop. A couple of things here. There's a big picture on the desktop. And we'll take a look when we take a look at personalization. I'll show you how to change that. We want to basically look for the start menu. That's in the lower left-hand corner. So I'm going to draw an arrow there for you so you can find it when I'm going along. So in the lower left-hand corner, right there is the start button. Okay, and that's what we're going to use most of the time today. Okay, so we're going to click on start and the start menu pops up. Okay, so I have a gear here for settings. That's what I want. This is also how you power down your computer or put it to sleep. But settings is what I want to click on. And when I click on it, it opens up the settings window. These are all the settings that I have access to. And there's a lot. Okay, they're organized by categories. So if I hover over system, it says display, devices. Those are things attached to my computer. Phone, you can link your Android and iPhone to your computer. You can check your network. We can personalize, ease of access, gaming, change your region or date, your accounts, uninstall apps, searching, privacy, update, and security. There's just way too many settings for everybody, but we're going to take a look at some of the most important and useful ones and things that most people like to do with these. Okay. So at the top, I have a Microsoft account. You usually have to set one up when you set up Windows. And so I can manage my account. I use OneDrive and it shows it's working. It shows my Windows update was last checked. It's small. I know it's 56 minutes ago. And then it has rewards if I use the Bing browser or if I use web browsing with Microsoft's built-in web browser called Edge. It gives me some recommendations for settings. And I can always search for a setting as well. So I can always find something by typing in something in the search box here. So let's learn about our system first. Learning about your computer is helpful. Let's go to System, and I'm going to click on System. And what it does is opens up a whole additional menu of additional settings. And each menu item has more options here for everything. So it pops up display first. You'll see on the left, there's a little highlight bar that tells you that it's highlighted. But I'm going to go all the way down to about, because that tells me about my computer. I actually have two Windows computers, one that I do for classes and one I do for this. Windows shutting it down your computer. Windows recommends you shut it down about every 3 or 4 days. That's all you have to do. Otherwise, you can let it go to sleep, because going to sleep is important. When we look at update, that's important. So let me draw some lines for you. The first thing is I want to know my processor. This tells me I have an Intel Core i7-7700HQ. If I wanted to know more about it, I could type that into a web browser and it would take me to Google's website or Intel's website, and I can learn about that processor. It's about a 4-year-old processor, but it's what's called a 4-core. It has 4 cores, meaning there's 4 processors on a chip. It's pretty fast. I use 4 gigabytes of RAM. Normally, you might see 8. Some people that do a lot of graphics do 16. And then it tells you what edition of Windows you are using down here. Okay, and this says Windows 10 Home. There's another edition of Windows called Windows 10S. Do not be frightened or upset or concerned if you have a Windows 10S versus Windows 10 Home. When Chromebooks started to hit the marketplace, they're made by various computer companies, but the operating system on Chromebooks is made by Google, and it's called Chrome. Microsoft makes Windows, Google makes Chrome. And they priced it so that you could get a Chromebook laptop for a fairly low price, under about $300. They were primarily designed to be web browsing tools and use web applications, but all Microsoft had at the time was Windows 10 Home, and they wanted to help their partners to make hardware to compete. So they came out with a different version of Windows. It's really no different, but it has a few less features, and one's only really important, Windows 10S. The S stands for secure. And the difference between Windows 10 Home and Windows 10S is that on Windows 10S, in order to install an application on your computer, you have to go to the Microsoft Store. The Microsoft Store is an app in your start menu. Let me get my mouse back here. In your start menu, you have an app called the Microsoft Store that takes you to Microsoft Store and will let you download and install apps. So that's the only difference between Windows 10 and Windows 10S. That's the only thing. So these are important things to just be aware of this, if in case you're trying to figure out if your processor is fast enough to do something that's important. Okay, so let's take a look at storage. Okay. Okay, so for those of you asking some questions about keeping laptops plugged in and power, we cover a lot of those things in the Windows 10 Basics class. So I'd recommend that. We want to focus a little more on settings for this class, but if we have time at the end, I'll try and answer all the questions. So some of you had questions about cleaning up your computer and defragging and other things. Defragmentation is something your Windows operating system does automatically now. It does it automatically. There's no need to manually do it. What it does is that when you have a computer, let me see if I can, and you have a disk drive that's a platter like this, sometimes you'll end up with little files that take up space on your computer, and there's a little spindle in the center, and this whole disk rotates. If it is a hard disk drive, okay? If it's a hard disk drive. So there are also disk drives that are made up from computer chips called solid state drives, SSD. And you can find out whether you have a hard drive or a solid state drive by looking at your optimized drives link here in settings. But the old days of having a rotating disk and needing to defragment it are gone because Microsoft's put in something called Storage Sense, okay? And Storage Sense will clean up your disk drive automatically when your computer is idle. And so when you leave your computer on and it goes to sleep, the screen dims. That's why it's sometimes good to leave a computer plugged in. You can leave a laptop, if it's a relatively new laptop, you can leave the battery, you can leave it plugged in, it won't affect the battery at all. But your computer will automatically free up space, get rid of files, and organize the files to optimize and your disk drive automatically. It's called Storage Sense. It's built in here. Any questions about that? Because I know some people had some questions about storage and defrag and things like that. So you just don't need to do defragmentation or disk cleanup anymore if you turn Storage Sense on. And that's in the settings, system, and storage. And you can, if you want to learn more about it, there are links on the right here that you can find. Okay, so, and it explains here, keep clutter off your PC. When Storage Sense is turned on, it'll free up space only when your PC is low to clean up unused files, clean it now if you need to, but it'll do it automatically. And what it's doing is that there's this thing called temporary files. Whenever you browse the web or you use an application, sometimes that application uses a file that it only needs temporarily. And then when you save the file or you leave the web page, like if you visit Amazon, it would download photos from things you were looking at. You don't need those files permanently stored on your hard drive, and they are called temporary files. And so Storage Sense will automatically clean them up when it needs to, and it'll automatically defragment your drive. Your Windows automatically defragments your drive, whether you have Storage Sense on or not. Doesn't matter. So Storage Sense will clean it up. And it tells you how much storage you have. Most people don't really need that much storage on a computer. 256, normally it's 256 when you buy it, but it cuts one off for some reason when it counts it in Windows. And it shows you I'm using 48.6 and I've got 206 gigabytes free. So you've got a lot of space. So sometimes it'll tell you you've got how much space you have on your storage in your computer. And this is the drive letter C. That's typically the main drive on your computer. There used to be an A drive and a B drive, but they don't ship and get installed anything anymore. The A drive was a 5¼ inch floppy. I don't know if anybody still has those around. Anybody have a 5¼ inch floppy around? Okay, and another drive was the B drive. That was a 3½ inch floppy. You know, and now they don't even ship computers with DVD drives, do they? You have, if you want one, you got to buy an accessory. Okay, so Jackie wanted to know about Storage Sense. Okay, so if you go to settings, I'm going to show you a little bit here on settings. But we go back to the start menu, open up the settings gear, and it brings up all these settings options. It's under system and storage. And Storage Sense is at the top. You just turn it on. It probably is turned on already, but if it's not, you can just click on this on button to turn it on. If it's blue, then it's on. And just, that's all you need to do. Okay. That'll clean up your drive. It'll defragment it, so that it's automatic. It takes place in the background. And if you want to learn more about disk cleanup, you can click on the link here. It opens up Microsoft's help site on disk cleanup and explains more than you ever wanted to know about disk cleanup if you want to. So it explains how you can specifically do disk cleanup, but Storage Sense will automatically do it. Kind of interesting how they have all these help functions built in. Okay, I'm going to go back to the main settings screen. Those are just a few tips. Now you're learning a little bit about your PC. It's kind of like when you walk into a doctor's office and you first visit a doctor, they don't know anything about it. They want you to get your medical history. The about, information and storage gives you a little bit of information about your PC that will help you out. Okay, let's take a look at update and security. That's this one right here. Okay. If I click on it, and you notice how when I move my mouse over these areas, there's a little gray box that highlights out. Yeah, and Jackie, the information is the same whether it's a laptop or a desktop, with one exception. Well, it has to do with the fact that your laptop may have a trackpad instead of a mouse, but it has all of the built in. But as far as what we've covered so far, Windows is Windows. Okay, so this brings up update and security. And boy, I love to see something that says you're up to date, right? Who doesn't like that, right, on their technology? And it has a nice green check mark. Everything's good, okay? If there was a problem, it would be yellow or red. But I update Windows automatically. I did not change anything on my computer. So when you open your computer up from a box and you open up Windows for the first time and set it up, it is automatically set up to go out over the internet. You have to connect it to the internet, but it will automatically check with Microsoft every day to see if there's a Windows update to your Windows operating system. Automatically. You can manually check for updates if you want to, but it automatically updates it. It automatically downloads it to your computer, and it will automatically install it either when your computer is asleep or outside of what are called active hours. Normally, out of the box, your computer is set to active hours for 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's when most people work. But and Windows will not install an update during those hours, okay? But unless you manually choose to do it, you can do it. So it's set to work automatically, and that's important to make sure it's doing it automatically. You can check, make sure Windows updates here. Check for updates. You can do it. Now, this is one that says an optional quality update. Windows has two types of updates. One is called critical. It would help to spell it right, wouldn't it? And one is called optional, okay? Critical updates automatically install. They automatically download and install, okay? And so, but they might not install until after 5 p.m., for example. Optional updates means that it's not necessarily fixing anything that's a problem. It's a quality update. It might improve how Windows features work on your computer is all. Okay, that's what a quality update is. So it's optional. Okay? And that they're not going to automatically install an optional quality update. What they might do is at some point, in a future update, say, we're just going to throw it in anyway and install it. But when you bought Windows, Windows was included when you bought your personal computer. Microsoft sold it to the company that made your computer, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, etc., right? And Windows came pre-installed on your computer. And so that's how you bought it, but it's a Microsoft product, okay? And it updates. Okay, thanks, Tagar. Good to see you. Bye-bye. Okay, so these are things that are more automated all the time. In the old Windows XP and Windows 7, this wasn't necessarily set up automatically. They started doing it more in Windows 8. They skipped Windows 9, So if anybody ever says, "Oh, I have Windows 9," you know they're full of it, right? But there is no Windows 9. There's only a Windows 10. Okay, so they skipped it. And Windows 10 has been around for about 5 years. It's really pretty good. So if you that's update. The next thing on the left here is security. Okay, so if I click on security, it brings up security. It tells me at a quick glance, no actions needed, virus and threat protection. No actions needed, account protection. No actions needed, firewall and network. No actions needed, no actions needed. I can get a health report, kind of like running a diagnostic, it's kind of like running a CAT scan on your computer if you want to see how's it working. But you don't have to run that unless you just want to learn more about it. So Microsoft, out of the box, when you opened up your computer box, it had built-in virus and malware protection that Microsoft included with Windows 10. But you probably bought a computer that had a lot of optional software you could install for security if you wanted to, and subscribe to if you wanted to. Okay, so companies like HP and Dell and Lenovo and Acer and other things like that, they include a lot of junkware is what it's called. And basically it's extra software that they offer. They offer you like free trials and things like that because they get paid a commission from the software company if you buy it. So like HP, if you bought a computer from HP and it had Norton antivirus, just not to pick on Norton, but they're just one name, and you subscribe to Norton, HP would get a commission from Norton for because that you activated a subscription. McAfee. So you find that retail computers sometimes come with a lot of software you just don't need. But Windows has its own built-in antivirus and malware and security system. So you don't have to buy anything else if you don't want to. But this is how you would check to make sure it was working okay, is just check your Windows security and update in security. Any questions about that? Okay, we're doing okay so far? You're learning a lot about
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. This is like I say, it's kind of like adjusting the seat position in your car or rearranging furniture. This is how you check things out. So you wanted to see, okay, is there dust on the counter, right? Those types of things. Let's take a look at something called ease of access, okay? Now, in other devices, like how many of you have an iPhone or an Android phone? I mean, we all have smartphones these days, right? There are settings in your phones as well, and they have different navigation and different places you find things, but a lot of the functions are the same. You can check to make sure you've got the latest version. You can learn about your device. You can see if your security is up to date. All of those types of things. It's how you look at it. And then you can customize a few things. Ease of access is one of these things that it can do. So like if it's not secure, then Windows makes it very difficult for it not to be secure, but you would want to activate your Windows security. Let me go back to update and security. If I go to security, and if I could open Windows security, so it would say turning on Microsoft Defender Firewall, or adding, using Windows security, or getting help even, okay? But these typically, when you open this window, it'll tell you what's going on. And if it has an issue here, virus and threat protection, it will let you see who is protecting you, and you could check to see. But if you uninstall Microsoft, or if you uninstall somebody else, rather, like Norton or McAfee or Kaspersky or something else, Microsoft will automatically take over automatically. So it's pretty good on that. It's really rare for Windows 10 to have security issues these days. They've made it so much better. Okay, let's go to ease of access. Okay, ease of access is also called accessibility. Normally people can use the computer the way it works, but sometimes people need additional help. Jackie, a security question. You can't, Windows will not run more than one security software at a time. So it'll automatically take care of that for you. So if you run McAfee, you won't, it'll disable Windows. If you install like McAfee or Norton, it'll disable Windows. And so you only need one. And Microsoft's is really good that comes with it. So you don't even have to buy anything else.
Oh, okay. Question, if you have McAfee also, how do you then get rid of the McAfee and reinstall the Windows security?
Well,
I did not know that. So I've been buying McAfee as well.
sure, sure. Well, when you see an application in your start menu, you can right click it. We'll see if we can have time to go through installing and uninstalling apps here. There's actually a setting where you can uninstall an app where it says apps right here in settings. If you
Okay.
click on that, it says uninstall. So it'll give you the ability to uninstall apps from there.
And automatically Windows will kick in, or do
It
you have to reinstall it?
it should automatically kick in, and so when you uninstall McAfee, but you want to just go to Windows security settings and make sure it did. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
But yeah, but they're all good. I mean, but you don't have to buy it if you don't want to. So Windows,
Wow.
it became a lot more like Apple Macs. So you might have heard people that have Macs saying, "Oh, Macs are more secure." Well, part of the reason is that Windows is the biggest operating system in the world, and so if you're gonna rob a bank, like Jesse James said, he was asked by a reporter why he robbed banks. And his answer was, that's where the money is, right? So if you're going to try and hack computers, why not hack the most that are out there? Okay, let me get on to ease of access. Now, again, whenever you see anything on the right-hand side, there's always help functions. You can actually open up a little chat bot here that will open up some chat from Microsoft, and it will let you chat with their artificial intelligent assistant over the web to get help on things. So when in settings, all of these links on the right are Microsoft tools to help you out. And some of them are troubleshooters. I'll show you those. Okay, so maybe you want to make the text bigger on your screen for almost everything you do. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't do it in web browsers. In web browsers, it's separate. But I have on the display, it says I can make my display easier to see. And on these ease of access tools, it says vision, another one says hearing, and another one says interaction. Interaction is much more involved, but a friend of mine had ALS, and he used a special camera with eye control that would track his eyes as he moved his eyes, and it would let him use his eyes to type on a keyboard and
That's
to click
amazing.
on the mouse.
Wow.
And that's one of the more extreme ones, but they do have some tools for, I have a little bit of a hearing impairment, and I wear hearing aids. And so most of the time I'm okay, but some sounds are tough to hear. And so I can make my device easier to use without sound by displaying audio as text. So one of the things that Get Set Up is doing, we're working on, and is that we're going to be having closed captioning on our as an option on our classes. I mean, I listened to way too much rock music as a kid, when I was in school. And, when you stand too close to these big speakers,
Yeah.
it affects you later in life. It's, it's like doing those things. But this is how you can adjust closed cap, and they give you help. Okay. So if you're wondering what you have available for things, you can do it. Audio, sometimes you can turn off stereo. If you have two speakers on your computer or your laptop and you turn on mono, sometimes it makes it easier to hear voices. On your display, we can adjust the text. So this says make text bigger right here. And I'm going to highlight that area for you. Okay, so we're going to look at this area right here. And if I grab the slider with my left mouse button, I can slide this and see how the sample text is going to look on my screen to make it bigger and easier to read. Then sometimes you will see a button called apply. Now, if I apply it, wait, it's all bigger. Okay, all the text
Wow.
is bigger. Okay. So that's one thing. People like to make text bigger, right? And so now another setting, I'm going to go back here, click apply, and just takes a second. Another thing makes everything bigger. You may not have noticed it, but when I just made the text bigger, it did not make the icons in my taskbar bigger. But I can make everything bigger all at once by just clicking this and going to 125%, and everything becomes bigger, including the icons and buttons, and even the desktop things on my screen got bigger as well.
So cool.
So that's a way to do it if you like it. Okay. You can change brightness, you can change contrast, but one of the neatest things to change is the mouse pointer. It's something we look for all the time. I have a mouse pointer that gets bigger when I shake it. That's convenient, because if you lose it, you're looking all over your screen, where'd it go, right? Never happens to anybody else, right? Okay, so I can change the size of the pointer just like I can change the text by dragging that slider, and you can see the pointer's getting bigger.
Wow.
Jackie, I am going to show you how to change backgrounds. Yes, that's the next thing coming up. Now, I can change my mouse to this is the standard one that's checked off, but if I want to make it white with a black outline, I can do it that way. This one inverts it, and if I slide it over certain areas, it changes a little bit. If it's on a dark area, it'll change colors. But my favorite one is the custom one. Custom one lets you make your mouse a color. Okay? And it's like changing the upholstery, on a sofa, right? So they have some suggested colors, right? Yellow, orange, blue, green, but you can pick a color and you want just by clicking this plus button, and you can drag this little slider around. So if I want a bright orange one like that, I can select it, I can move my little and click done. And now I've got a bright orange, big mouse pointer, really easy to see all over, right?
That's so cool. And all that is on the settings.
That's in settings under ease of access. And it's really clear. It's called mouse pointer. Okay.
Thank you.
There are some other tools here as well. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to the standard one, because next time I do a class, I don't want them to say, well, gee, Bob, how come your mouse is orange, right? I want to start out simple and show them a little trick, right? So people are going to say, hey, how did you get your mouse orange, right? Or green, or just pick your favorite color, right? Okay. And then it makes it. Now, remember, if you're working on something that has a blue background and you have a blue mouse, it's not going to be quite as visible. But if you go to your settings, ease of access, mouse pointer, you can do that real quickly.
Well,
And get back. Now for people with touchpads, see on the right here, it has this thing called touchpad settings. I'm using a desktop, and there are some gestures that you can use. So if you can change a few things. So you can adjust the sensitivity of that touchpad. You can do it here. And it also gives you things like if you got a touchpad problem, you can fix it. It takes you to a website where you can say, oh, okay, these are where I can fix some touchpad settings if I want to. It takes you to Microsoft's website for those things. So always at the right, you've got help available to you that's built in. Printers and scanners, I just want to
Can
show
I
you.
just ask a quick question with the touchpad?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yes, so if you're trying to, sometimes when I'm trying to highlight something to change the text, my touchpad won't do anything. I have to keep playing with it until it will do something.
Yeah, it depending on the hardware and your finger, touchpads react to a certain amount of moisture on your finger. So if you might try just using a little bit of lotion on your finger, that helps sometimes. But if you have to adjust your touchpad under devices, there are a few settings. So you could make it more sensitive under here if it's not letting you do it very easily. Or you can look at fixing touchpad problems and see what happens with that. But sometimes the easiest thing is just to get an accessory mouse and plug it in to your laptop. Because I am not a big fan of touchpad use. I mean, I use an iPhone screen a lot, so that's not one. And then selecting text with a touchpad's kind of hard. If you do a lot of typing or selecting of text, I'd recommend you get an accessory mouse. It'll be the best $25-$30 you spend.
I have one. I just don't use it.
Okay. And I just find the moving a mouse around on a screen gives you a lot more precision and ease of use than a touchpad sometimes. But it could be just a sensitivity setting on your touchpad that might adjust it. Okay, so let's look at something called personalization in settings. Personalization is where you can personalize things. Now, this is really nothing that affects the operation. It just affects how things look. It's like, doing your hair or putting makeup on or changing your clothing. It's just personalization, okay? So the background is what that big image in the back of your screen. Okay, I'm going to minimize this window. This is my background right now. That's on my desktop, okay? So if I want to change my background, I can change it to a different picture. It has some of the more recent pictures I have used, but I can also browse my computer if I have a picture on my computer and select one of those. Okay, so if I click on browse, it will open up my file system on my computer. And these are all folders and files and images and things that some I took. I took a photo at the Rose Parade. I've never been, I grew up in Chicago, and as kids go in California, Southern California, usually their high school makes a trip to the Rose Parade. If my late wife was in a marching band and she marched in the Rose Parade. But if you grow up in Chicago, you rarely ever go visit the Rose Parade, right? And so I wanted to go see it. So I went a couple of years ago and I took some pictures. And so this is the picture of the Rose Parade I took, one of them. And if I select it as my file, it changes the background for me to the float, the pictures. Now, this is a preview. If I want to see what it looks like, wow, okay, the colors are really bright. I mean, they are really intense. So it's just amazing.
gosh, that's gorgeous.
Isn't it? Yeah,
So vibrant.
yeah, these are all flowers, everything. You know, it's just amazing when you see it up close and personal like that. And the smell, the odor, you know, the fragrance from the flowers, and people are friendly. They're waving to you in the crowd and everything. So, unfortunately, we didn't have it this year, but this was from a year and a half ago.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
So that's one picture, but any picture you have on your computer that you can find by browsing is something you can use. And then like this one will stay here. I have the last one I used. It keeps about 4 or 5 of them here. You can also make it a solid color. So if you prefer a solid color, you can just make it one color: black, orange, blue, gray, whatever you prefer, okay? And that makes it a solid color. So it looks pretty dull, but maybe it's easier for you to see. So some people might want it a solid color for that reason. So I'll go back to a picture. You can even get it to be a slideshow as well. And then there's this other thing they have called themes. On the left here, there's this thing called themes. And I just discovered this the other day. They have themes that change your backgrounds, the colors, the way things sound, and the mouse cursor. So this is a custom theme, but I go to this Aerial Beaches theme, and these themes are free from the Microsoft Store. It actually has a link right here to go to the Microsoft Store if you want to find themes. And this has 14 images. They'll just change and automatically give you a slideshow as you want to use it.
Wow.
I mean, and then, you know, so the Microsoft Store has all these themes available from you. And so it automatically brings up themes. Then it says, put personality into your Windows desktop, explore wallpaper, sounds, accent colors, and more. And it says premium, but they're free. They're free. They don't cost anything. And they're just dozens and dozens and dozens. Springtime animals, you know, and it'll download it and install it. And then it's a theme that you can select in your customizations. Piglets in the clover patch. Okay, that sounds interesting. So I'm just going to download that for fun. Okay, let's see what happens. So it's starting the download. So I can just do other things while it starts the download. So that's some themes that you can use if you want to. Cottage Gardens has a lot of pretty flowers. It's like make your desktop springtime, right? You know, and so it has 12 images and it changes a few colors. These downloads are like, there's like 12 photos, so they might take up, you know, maybe 100 megabytes, so they don't take up a lot of room on your disk drive. So there's different things you can do. You can get additional fonts. So you can install, these are all fonts you can drag and drop, and you can install them by selecting them and get more fonts in the Microsoft Store. So these are all fonts that you comes with. You can change how the start menu works a little bit. Now you notice that these colors, they used to be blue. That was the theme color. Now they're kind of a bright pink. They're my cottage garden theme color. So it changes little accents like that. And the links on the right here, they're changed as well. So that's what a theme does. A theme changes everything. That's a nice desktop. I like that one.
That's good.
So that's under backgrounds. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to change this to my picture, go back to my standard one so that next time I use Microsoft, it's going to be set up for me. Okay. So that's just a little overview of settings, those set, things like that. So where do you, oh, Lynn, when you download the themes, they download to, I don't know where they download, to be honest with you, but they just will show up in your settings automatically as a theme in your theme library here. I don't know where they end up downloading to be honest with you. Okay, wow. You can believe we've gone through almost an hour. So it's amazing, isn't it? When you're having fun. When you're
Yeah,
having
you can
fun
spend
with,
hours.
right?
You can spend hours just navigating through stuff.
It is, and these are just ways to learn more about your computer and to customize a few things. So let me see if I missed any questions here. Going through, okay. Okay, now there'll be a recording available for you, and I'm going to go through a few slides, and then we'll take any closing questions here. So we found where to get to settings, some valuable ones that you can use to customize it, how to check your security. We found where we can get additional help and troubleshooters. And I do a class on Windows 10 basics that helps you understand a little bit about how to navigate around Windows more and some other features. OneDrive Basics is a class that my fellow guide Wade does, and I might be helping him with that class a little bit in the future. I'm going to recommend Pay Bills and Bank for security and safety. It really will give you a good education on using websites online safely. We've got some classes on PowerPoint and Excel. I don't know if we have a Word one or not, but PowerPoint is part of Microsoft 365. We've got a class coming up, I think next week, on organizing files on your PC. That's for both PCs and Macs. They both work pretty much the same way. You're going to get an email with some of the links and things I've mentioned in class. We appreciate your feedback and any suggestions you have. Hopefully you learned a few things today. People feel like they spent a good hour today, enjoying yourself, learning a little bit about technology. And
enjoyed it. Very good. Very good class.
Yes, excellent.
And then, spread the word. We appreciate it. I told a friend about Get Set Up. I just started doing classes on Get Set Up in January, but I told a friend about it, and she took 60 classes in 1 month.
Wow.
I know some of you have taken a lot of classes. Okay. So the other thing I'd recommend, I don't know whether the new websites have been easy or challenging to navigate, but there is a class offered by one of my other guides called Marv. He's actually a technical assistant and helps out, but he showed me a couple of new things that are in the online. We have Get Set Up TV. It keeps a history of classes you've taken. It has your calendar. It's a little friendlier on a desktop or a laptop than it is on a smartphone. But everything, we're making some improvements, and we'll have some improvements to the smartphone version. Hopefully even have an app out there for it. Okay. So any questions before we bid each other adieu for the morning or the day, and go on to your next Get Set Up class. Okay.
Thank you, Bob. It's Mary
Thank
Ann.
you.
Thank you,
Awesome class.
Thank
Thank you.
Excellent.
See you. Okay. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Great. See you. Angela, Hattie. Okay. All right, Jill. Thanks for coming today, and have a good time getting ready for your next class. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.